you to be one of the first ones, but we're doing this live stream on your channel. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to trying to get the next generation out on the Lei Tai in the ring, whether it's push hands or full contact fighting. I mean, we got to help them get there, get over their first fight hump. You either go in there or go in there scared. Just go in there and try. See what you got. Wilson Pitts, my first teacher.
A Tai Chi fighter?
He definitely came from the karate side, and I think, you know, he came through the Chin Man Ching side through Robert Smith. He used to go to Robert Smith up in DC, his free class, and then he would go back down to Richmond, Virginia, and he did some private lessons with him. So the approach was through softness. You know, the Chin Man Ching style is a little bit more emphasis on like relaxation and softness, and he learned some Bagua and Xingyi from him as well. And he taught those things. Interestingly, Jeff Sutherland was talking about Wing Chun the other day, and so Wilson didn't teach the boxing right away, and so I had a friend in college who was like, "Hey, if you want to learn how to fight with your Tai Chi right away, there's a Wing Chun school here." And so I did Wing Chun for a year, and then that kind of gave me some more confidence to get into the fighting. But originally, you know, when I came into to Tai Chi as a martial art, I came in from the side of like Buddhism and yoga. I was even vegetarian at the time. I worked at two vegetarian restaurants, the Integral Yoga Health Food Store, which was Swami Satchidananda's gig. So I came in from doing yoga and going to the Zen temple that was in Richmond, Virginia. And and then later on, about 2 years later, Coach Wei Chi came into the city, was working for Parks and Recreation. A Chinese student said, "Hey, there's a Chinese master," and she did wushu. She was wushu, but she was also a top student of Fujian Wen. And way of using it is wushu just means all Chinese martial arts. However, it is associated with the modern. Yeah, it's associated with like the contemporary compulsory forms, like the 24 form, and then there's compulsory long fist and south fist and weapons, and that was try to get everybody in the world on an equal level. So there was like a compulsory form everyone had to learn. So we did the traditional and modern training as well, like the long fist training, but I was never one to want to do tournaments, but coach was like, "Hey, we're going to go to Taste of China." And then they had push hands competition there. It was like forms and push hands. So we had guys doing push hands, and we had a wrestler, Virginia State champion wrestler, this guy named Steve Lipscomb. We would go over to his training facility, which was basically a racquetball court, and practice more of the striking and the more aggressive push hands for competition. Steve was he won a few of the push hands events. And a couple of our guys won too. Bruce Schaub is one who did really good. And so, yeah, that's basically my background coming out of Richmond. And then when I moved up to Northern Virginia, I trained with some other coaches as well. So that's why I cringe when people say they talk about doing standing. Like, I do standing for 30 minutes. I do standing for 40 minutes. Our class was never that. We were doing walking forward, walking backwards, walking sideways, adding hands, like brush knee, repulse monkey, cloud hands, and doing small sections like over and over again. If there's a small section like open fan, turn an elbow, we did that 10 times, you know? So like if the class was an hour, 45 minutes was just drilling basics. And then at the end, we would probably learn some form and then do some kind of Qigong warm down at the end. And we had to warm up too. And we also did stretching. Stretching was a big deal. In Coach Wei Chi's class, no, there wasn't sparring. In the kids, there was sparring. We did weapon sparring. I still have the weapons here. We had these padded swords, and we had these padded ones. because there was an actual event at the Quoshu tournament for that. So we used to do that, and then we would do push hands, but we would go to Steve's place to do more of the functional fighting kind of stuff. Now, and then Wilson Pitts, if he was training fighters for the Quoshu, we would do a fight camp there. So we would do, that would involve simulating, getting in the corner, having your coach there prep, and then he would coach during the fighting and recording. Recording is a big deal because you want to see how you look and how you're performing. So that's really important. Now, let's skip forward to Washington, D.C., because that's Richmond, Virginia, when I was more in college. Because when I moved after college and I'm, developing my career, that's where I was training at Chinese Wushu Institute, Chinese Martial Art Institute, and they actually had more sparring. They had like an open sparring night. They had like Thursday night sparring, Saturday sparring, but they still did a lot of forms and everything. And so being there, and there was a couple Sancho tournaments and a couple smokers, and did some of those. But when MMA exploded, when Dana White kind of took over, and I want to say around 2004 maybe, when Dana White kind of revamped UFC, it was kind of like dying. They did Ultimate Fighter came out. Ultimate Fighter was the one that kind of revived it. It was on like Spike Channel. And so so then there was the MMA revision. I was working in real estate at the time, and one of my guys I was networking his computer, his name was Bill. He was like, "Oh, there's this guy Jeff Root just opened up an MMA school." And I was also doing body work at the time, like massage therapy, and I needed people to work on. And so I went to Jeff's school and I was like, "Hey, if you or your fighters need work, let's trade body work for lessons." Because when I went there, I saw Muay Thai classes for the first time. And they're hitting the pads and they're drilling the hell out of like just basics like punches, kicks, elbows, knees, whatever. I was like, oh shit, they're training way harder than we were training at the Chinese martial arts school. If I can train with these guys and then go into the Chinese martial art tournament, I think I'm going to do pretty good against the Chinese martial art guys, because I know that they're not training as hard as these MMA guys are. Because we had a boxing coach who was a pro. We had Muay Thai coaches that were champions, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that were champions. Like Ryan Hall was the, I don't know if you know him, but he won the Ultimate Fighter like season 10 or whatever. He was the BJJ guy. And we had a couple, Dave Kaplan was on one of the seasons of UFC Fighter. He was the guy, he's famous in UFC, the Ultimate Fighter, for being the guy who's like, punch me in the chin. I've never been knocked out before. Remember, he was drunk in the bathroom and someone punched him. That was Dave Kaplan. Like, he was one of the coaches. MMA school was a real rude awakening, because if you're going to be on the fight team, you don't say no to anything. If the coach says, okay, run that track 6 times, you do it. You don't question it. You can't be like, oh, I'm tired today. My leg hurts, or, you just do it, or you're not going to be on the fight team. So one time after being in the MMA for a while, I went to United States Wushu Academy and was hanging out with their Sancho fighters. And they were going to do the Quoshu full contact tournament. And I was like, hey, let's go to the track. I wanted to show you what we did at the MMA school. Everyone who did the track workout had good endurance, good stamina, fought all their rounds all the way to the end. They never got knocked out. They had, when you train really hard. And that was one of the things going into being a fighter, is like, I don't want to be that guy getting tired in the ring. Like, when you see guys gas out, that's like, that's a red flag or whatever. So I tried to get some of the Wushu guys to do the track workout, and they're kind of like, they didn't want to do it. It was too hard for them. Like running the track, doing sprints, like 50-yard dashes a bunch of times, doing burpees and like mountain climbers and stuff like that. They were not into that. So yeah, being in MMA, being training with MMA guys, real fighters, guys that have had the ring experience, and some of them won championships. I want to mention Dave Carter too. Hopefully he'll see this. Dave Carter was another champion, Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. These guys, with their experience and knowledge, they're able to give that to you. But if you have guys that have never fought before and then they're trying to train you for a fight, it doesn't really translate that well, because there's a mentality that you got to have. You have to have a killer instinct to be able to get in the ring.
Knowledge, if you haven't got it, I can remember leading up to my fight, like my original Sifu, just getting me to do stuff that was nonsensical. I can remember looking at him through half it, why are you doing this to me? This is not helping me at all. Thankfully, I had other people helping me out, but yeah, he certainly wasn't. If I'd have relied just on his training, I would have been in for a bad.
Circle Tai Chi fit all in this whole thing. Like for me, Tai Chi was my recovery training. So if I worked out at, I had my day job, right? My 9 to 5 job. So my morning would be, work on form, work on my Negung, my mental stuff, right? Like some sitting meditation, just to get the mind at ease and calm. And then Tai Chi and Bado Jin, that stuff would be the recovery training. And then after work, go to the MMA school where there's your regular classes, like your Muay Thai classes. We had CrossFit there to get our cardio and strength training in. And then one of my teachers who did CrossFit was also an MMA conditioning coach certified. He did some kind of special certification, and so we would do the sled pushes or running and just different kinds of circuits, and what do they call it, meta training or something like that. And then at night I would probably do some form, or also definitely eating correctly too. You want to eat well. Doing fight camps is usually a 6 to 8 week process. The fight camp is harder than the actual fight, because when you're sparring people. Yeah, fight camp is harder than the actual fight. So and sparring hard, you're allowed to spar hard. If you're going to be in the fight, you're allowed to get your ass kicked. And the good thing is you're getting your ass kicked by people much bigger than you, because I'm a pretty small guy. So when these knuckleheads in the Tai Chi form that are much bigger than me, mouth off, it doesn't scare me, because I've trained against guys much bigger and uglier than them. So
fight people the same weight as you, and I'm always well, if you can't fight someone the same weight as you, if you aren't prepared to fight someone the same weight as you, you definitely can't fight someone who's heavier than you. But the other side of it being as well, but you train in a school, you're going to have people of different heights, different weights. It's not like you only train against people the same size as you. It all gets mixed up. So you'll train against people heavier, lighter, shorter, taller, more built, more fat. You get a great range of training at an MMA or a Muay Thai gym, and probably for the most part better than most Tai Chi. Now, me personally, my Tai Chi training lead up to my Sanshou fight was pretty much only Tai Chi. I had previous to that, I'd done some Muay Thai because I'd gotten into a fight outside my work, where I worked at the time, and because everything I was taught was from someone coming in and trying to punch me. But in this fight, he initially come in and give it a 1-2 and just about caught me at the reach of, giving me a bit of a fat lip, but hadn't done anything to me. And then we just kind of stood there in front of each other and I'm waiting for him to do something, he's waiting for me to do something. And I thought I really need to get some experience outside of just standing there and having someone come towards me with a slow fist. And so I went to Muay Thai, but I'd stopped doing that by the time I'd committed to doing this Sanshou fight.
Your part horse's mane and use your pung, and now use your lu, and it's not going to be like that. And that's why I still can't believe there's no shame in these guys showing these demos of, they're making their student hopping back, and this is not going to go well with them when the shit hits the fan. It's not going to go well. So I grew up in a military town. There's like Navy SEALs there, so functional martial arts was a huge thing. We had like the Filipino stick fighters, we had the JKD people, we had some Wing Chun guys through Duncan Leung. We had Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So there's a lot of MMA schools down there. And like when the first UFC started coming out, they were having like full contact fights down there. And so if you went into town and you're doing Tai Chi and you're, showing off all these like little techniques, you're going to get challenged. We did a demo once and like a Wing Chun school showed up. Luckily, I knew those people. I was like, oh, hey, what's up? Um, but yeah, because I went to Duncan's school and I said, hey, we're gonna have a demo. So like a bunch of guys showed up and they were expecting to see like, Wing Chun kind of like applications or something, or see more applications, but we actually were doing more form. And it was the thing is with the Parks and Recreation, it's always usually older folks that are there to do Tai Chi. So, you have to cater to the crowd. And so we weren't there to do like Sancho fighting, or we weren't even there to do push hands. So that's that for that particular story.
What you've learned since then, like what is it you would have said to your younger fighting self? How would you have changed things? Is there anything you would have changed, done better to prepare you for fights?
A few techniques. That's one thing. Coach Joe, who was invited to teach in Richmond, Virginia with Coach Wei Chi, is fights come down to just a few techniques. He taught Lo Hui Xingyi. It was like a Xingyi that's like more really low stance and crouched. And so we just did a lot of bungs. We did a lot of peas. We did a lot of like just real simple kind of techniques. It wasn't like anything super fancy or anything. He's like, fights just come down to a few techniques. Like just have a few good kicks, have a few good strikes, be evasive, good footwork. That was for Dave Carter, who I mentioned earlier, his thing every class, footwork every time. You got to step off the angle of attack and counterattack. You can't just stand right in front of your opponent and be their punching bag. So that's what I would say. Just because I want to get the next generation into fighting, it just comes down to a few techniques. So in Tai Chi, you have your punch, you have your parry. You can just use these two things the whole time, and maybe a knee, a front kick, a round kick, a side kick, things like that.
Trying to get people who are interested in using Tai Chi as a real martial art is because I think it's why Sanda, for the most part here in the UK, is kind of dead and buried, really. It's like, how do you get people who are interested in competing doing that type of training when pretty much anyone that's interested in fighting now is signing up for Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, or MMA, or all three of those? Back in the day, obviously, before UFC was that popular, people would do Tai Chi as a way of like, well, I think this works better because, like, for me personally, Tai Chi seemed like MMA. Like, I always thought, well, if I can't outstrike the person, I can get in and throw them. I can get in and like take them down. If I get into a wrestle and they're better than me at that, then I can push them away and I can strike. That I basically thought of before I'd even seen the UFC. I felt Tai Chi for me was what it was. It was being the ability to fight at all ranges. Obviously, I wasn't aware of how rubbish I was at groundwork at the time, but that was my thoughts on it. But now we have people, if they are interested in this sort of stuff, they are going to gravitate towards combat sports. How do we attract, in your opinion, like people back into doing Chinese martial arts as a valid way of fighting, you know.
Sanda and Chinese martial arts exposed. The United States Chinese Wushu Wushu Association, they're really trying to ramp things up now. We had that chance back in the late 90s, when I think it was Jeff Bolt and some people in Orlando. They actually did a pay-per-view where they had Sancho fighting. Kung Lee was was the main event. Kung Lee, and I think Jason Lee. And then they had, like, during the breaks, they had like someone do forms, like form demos, and then they would have like a Sancho fight, and then they would have form demo, and then Sancho fight. That was where it was going until the association broke in two. Like, a lot of the American students that were, American, and then all the Chinese American kind of broke up. It split in two, and there was two factions in America, and then it just never recovered from there. So Wushu took a big hit out of that. And so nowadays we got people like Matthew Lee trying to bring it together, on social media and doing interviews like we're doing on YouTube, and some other people that have been on the U.S. Wushu team, trying to get the word out there. So hats off to them for trying to do it. I wish I can participate more, but I'm real busy with what I'm doing. And so, hopefully we can just push them. And I think more people are doing smokers too. I think Capital Punishment MMA in Maryland is starting to do some smokers, some Sanda smokers. So yeah, we just have to really try to get the word out there, and that will, like, smokers are great opportunities for people who are a little bit nervous and scared to really try to do it, because these events are pretty safe. You have a referee; they'll break it up if things look like they're getting hurt. I'm sure there's, like, they have a what's it called, like a professional. Different schools will announce that they're going to have a fighting event, and then they can bring their fighters in. Yeah, it's not a sanctioned fight. It doesn't really pad your record or anything, but it gives you experience. Muay Thai schools, but then they started allowing some Chinese martial arts schools to do it. Now, when I did a smoker with the Sancho rules, it had Muay Thai judges, so they didn't really know what they were looking at, and it ended up being a draw. But I mean, I threw the guy 5 times. He threw me 1 time. Yeah, and it's good to get over that, that first fight hump, and let someone punch you in the face and you punch them in the face, full contact. And people do get knocked out. People will get hurt there, but they'll stop the fight if it's not looking even. Things like that. They're still safe.
Vice versa. I mean, I think Tai Chi does have a lot to offer. The way I always view it is, the best Conor McGregor was touchbutt Conor McGregor, like with the guy in the park doing all the movement stuff. And I think, Tai Chi has a lot to offer in that. You can teach people how to respond to pressure, and how to respond to pushes and pulls, and in a way that's not going to stress your body out too much, and in a way, I think you can get a lot of training, like because we used to do this thing in Tai Chi where you just get someone to, like, manipulate your body, and you would just move with that flow. And when I saw the touch butt stuff that Conor McGregor was doing, I was like, well, that's straight from our school almost, And I think there is that side of things, but I get Tai Chi, for me, Tai Chi is a legitimate fighting system. And as I say, I trained in nothing but Tai Chi when I was, leading up to my fight. I had to go to get sparring rounds in. I did have to go outside of Tai Chi because there weren't many people in my class willing to do that kind of level of sparring. Yeah.
The MMA school had sparring every day, and there was no shortage of people to spar with. because MMA had exploded. The classes were full. Everyone wanted to kick and punch each other. And a Tai Chi class, I would go to Muay Thai class and do some like Tai Chi kind of sneaky moves on people, right? Or like some Bagua kind of moves. But when I would go to the Tai Chi class or the Kung Fu school and spar, I'd actually do like Muay Thai or some wrestling moves on them, like when it came to like throwing and stuff. So like each art does have like some nice universal principles that work, but it has to do with like having like tricks up your sleeve, like things people aren't going to know. um so it's like, because it's coming from a different martial art, you know what I mean? All martial arts are good. There is no best martial arts. All martial arts are best at what they're designed to do.
Pressure test it, you get lots of people that go, that looks like wrestling, which, you know, it is. David's back, he's saying like, yeah, he said, I am only saying you can do both. My point is, we can probably sell MMA guys on it if we explain it's not one or the other. I mean, he's right. Like we need to get MMA guys on board, but the problem that I'm trying to solve is attracting people to Tai Chi, to train Tai Chi, not just what can we supplement our with. It's like trying to get people to learn Chinese martial arts as a legitimate martial art. I think that's the difficult part that we've got to do.
Soft martial art is, it's not always 100% hitting. It is does have some yielding, but that brings up the question that on the Young Family Tai Chi group, the Facebook, is Joseph Chang had that question. He said, "What is the uniqueness of Tai Chi in the context of fighting?" And one thing I want to mention is, one, it teaches the calmness. Two, it teaches the emptiness and the aspect of not being there. You know how like when you're pushing, you can actually not be there. Like someone can hit you, you can turn and not be there, almost like a bullfighter kind of thing. Tai Chi does have that kind of, you're not always solid, you are empty too. There's solid and empty, full and emptiness. um, but when you're solid, you're hitting hard and you're using internal power, you're using some internal mechanics that's slightly different than a boxer. But I want to say, boxers, I like how my coach used to say, when you strike, it's like shoulder, hips, knee, and foot. But Tai Chi's kind of opposite. It's like foot through the waist, through the body, the opposite. So, but they're complementary at the same time. It just depends on how you're moving and where you are in your stance. The second thing that Joseph asked was, um, what do you expect to add from Tai Chi to enhance a skill if someone's coming in from like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai, karate, whatever? I would just go back to the same thing. The teaching of the calmness, the teaching of the internal alignments, where trying to find your opponent's softness and emptiness, or their solid and emptiness, like taking advantage of when they're stiff, taking advantage. Yeah.
Even as a white belt, I would be following their arms. When they're trying to underhook or go for arm bars, I'd be countering their arms and I'd be following their arms across the mat, which was definitely something I took from Tai Chi. David's saying like you can see our points. I'm totally with you with the points that you were making, but it is good to try and supplement other people with your Tai Chi training as well. But yeah, we're trying to get to how we can get people to like really buy into Tai Chi, well, Chinese martial arts in general, as a proper, legitimate form of martial arts. And I think sometimes we've got to acknowledge as well that people who are going to get into the Chinese martial arts, they might not want to compete. So I think your point about the smokers is a really valid one, which is it's not really going to be, lights and people taking notice and that footage going out online. And even if they don't want to do those, just getting people in to do a bit of sparring, because not everyone wants to go full on and take proper punches to the face, but it'd be nice to try and get people in and just get them used to being hit a little bit, and to build on that sort of force.
And you're going like 50% power, you shouldn't really take a lot of injuries. No. And you kind of need to take toughness. Like one of my favorite drills is just practicing a covering drill, like having someone hit hook, body, and then you just practice taking it, right? Deweese used to do, he came from more like, I think Chole foot and Hungar, is practice kind of standing like this, and then they would do these conditioning kicks on your legs and body. I guess it's more of like a Shaolin kind of thing, but doing those kind of things.
Using Tai Chi is like a lot of the stuff that you have traditionally in Tai Chi is contained within modern fight coach like syllabuses, like explosive, jumping. We have that in the saber form, in the sword form, like it's, like biometrics kind of, you have those in the form, like I say, conditioning. People will be hitting you with pads and other things if you go to a boxing gym. Well, if you've got someone actually punching it, like it's all the same sort of stuff. It's to make a fighter, it's kind of universal what you need to do. I think, and David's making the point again about, like most people come to Tai Chi because they want, to do the cool movements, or they want better balance. And I think trying to get them into the martial side of it is, your form is going to improve massively when you realize when you're doing something like this, you are pulling someone. If it's just airy-fairy movement, it's not going to look correct. So my first teacher, his thing was always to teach people, whether they wanted to learn the martial art or not, was to teach them the applications, just so that they could better do the form. If you know what you're doing, what those movements are doing, your form is going to look a lot better.
I remember teaching at a Tai Chi school when, I went to a massage school that was also a Tai Chi school. And so I was teaching some warm down drills that I learned from my Tai Chi coach. And some of them were like some forearm banging drills and packing the body drills. And they were just like, that's Tai Chi? And these are people that would like downplay wushu. That, like you say, oh, you did wushu. They would think it's like the modern stuff. They're like, oh God, you do wushu. And I was like, yeah, I learned this from my wushu coach, like some arm banging drills, packing the body, hitting the body. And that's conditioning. I mean, you're conditioning your skin, the muscles, tendons, bones, you're hitting so it gets tough. But people are like, oh, that's external, it's not internal, that type of nonsense, without understanding like the internal and external are one. Training your nervous system. Yeah, it's training your nervous system.
Thing is internal and external, because you cannot do anything inside your body without external contraction and expansion. This idea that there's purely internal movements and there's purely external movements is utter nonsense. It's people get absolutely, and maybe you can talk a little bit more.
The training that I grew up with was not like all this marketing nonsense. Like, oh, if you like, I'm going to look straight in the camera. If you ever paid to stand at a Tai Chi seminar, never go back to that person ever again. You should be doing all your basics. There's too many Tai Chi movements to learn, and you're devaluing the art by just standing around. You can stand later on. Stand on your own.
And that being 10 minutes of the class, because then it's like, okay, I've done the adjustments, now go home and do it. You don't need to waste precious time in a class. I don't really, hours and hours and hours. And it's, if that floats your boat, if you like the meditation aspect of it, if you enjoy doing that, brilliant, great, go ahead with it. But the idea that is essential in order to become a better fighter, to my mind, is a complete and utter nonsense. It can help with your mindset. If you can hold this posture for like an hour, then obviously you've got grit and determination in you. And if someone's laying it on you thick, if you've got the grit that I can hold this for an hour, I can certainly hold out for a couple of like seconds of taking it can help. But just doing this, and they go, oh yeah, I do this, and now I can ping someone on get out of it. You only learn how to deal with other people by practicing with other people. You can mimic the movements, you can do your strength and conditioning stuff, but if you don't get your hands on another person, you are not going to learn how to properly manipulate that person without doing it. That's what it comes down to. And the closer you can get to full resistance, the more applicable your Tai Chi is going to be.
It turned into like sticking and yielding. It used to be kind of like no nonsense, kind of striking, kind of almost like Wing Chun or something. So Coach Pei taught us these dasho drills, and doing these kind of things. And he said he got it from Yang Jinji, who was one of the older brothers of Yang Jin Do, and Yang Jinji got it from his older brother Yang Shozong, who was like the first son of Yang Shenfu. And so there's like 5 of them, 5 main ones, and then there's also the 5 hammers. Okay, and so we would do some of those kind of drills, and then do work on form. But he said that was the original push hands, and it was more striking, because da means attack and show is hands, so attacking hands, hitting hands. And then it became Tui Show as like a polite way of doing things, because you don't want to hit your partner or anything. But when I brought that up, maybe around 2010, 2011, when Coach Pei showed me that thing, everyone else started showing dasho. And it wasn't the same thing. People are like doing push hands and then throwing some punches in there. And anytime someone says dasho and I see it, I'm like, nope, that's not it. Nope. There's so much garbage dasho out there, so buyer beware, please.
You're not just going to stand there with a hand for it and not hit. So if you're breaking contact, you either have to be imbalancing the person so that they wouldn't be able to hit you, or you need to be in a superior position where you would be doing the hitting. And I went to a Wing Chun weekend event just gone, and I was struck by how similar like the Chi Sao is for a lot of the more practically minded Wing Chun guys. That they're keeping contact until they've got a split second to punch, but if they work themselves into a position, more dominant position, they will take a takedown, they will take a throw, they will take getting in like real close, moving off, using footwork. And it's what I always say, martial arts and martial arts, and there's way more similarities. There's more.
Was like he had the dream of the snake and crane, and then the Wing Chun is the founder, the woman had learned like the 5 animal styles, or Shaolin or something like that. So yeah, they go hand in hand. I've had some Wing Chun people say Tai Chi and Wing Chun go hand in hand. So it is
crane and snake boxing.
Have you ever sparred a Silat guy? Those guys flow like Tai Chi too. Me and this one guy, we were just like,
Again, people say, oh, they all influence each other. But I think if you isolate a group of people and get them just to kick 7 tons of, out of each other every day, eventually what you'll end up with is something that resembles the martial arts that we teach today, because there's only so many ways the body moves. There's only so many ways you can throw your body to strike, to receive strikes, to take down, to
universal fighting principles.
one day he was talking about something called set point, and he's like attacking a guy before he's able to really establish his root so he can strike. You know what I mean? Because like you have to have good grounded to the ground to have that good connection when you punch or whatever. And he's talking about something one of my Tai Chi's teachers, like when you're pushing someone, they're off balance, and then that's when you can come in and strike because they're off balance. They don't have their set point to be able to strike. So and this happened a lot of times with the other boxing teachers. They're talking about things that straight out of the Tai Chi classics. And so there is some universal fighting principles out there, and all styles somewhat contain them.
Tai Chi being magical in terms of like it gives people longevity, in terms of it makes them live longer. I think, you know, it's, as you well know, you know, it's diet, it's exercise, it's like genetics. Like they're the three things that are gonna elongate your life. What I do believe in terms of longevity of Tai Chi is, I think it helps with, it's an exercise. Like I say, it helps with stress. So can doing a lot of other exercises or a lot of things can lessen stress as well. Like what I think in terms of longevity is, I'm 46 years old. Like I do jiu-jitsu, I do all these other things that I've done, but my knees are fully functioning. You know, like my joints are fully functioning. I still stretch like pretty much how I did when I was in my 20s. You know, like where you talk to most people that do martial arts, if you've been doing jiu-jitsu from you, because I was doing Tai Chi from 14, 15. If you've been doing jiu-jitsu from 14, 15, your shoulders busted up, you know, your knees, probably both knees are gone. Like you've got like neck problems, you've got shoulder problems. You must see it all the time in your practice, you know. And you not get those injuries in the first place, you know. Like I understand my body so well for doing Tai Chi that if someone's tweaking a certain well, I'll just tap out because I'm like, I'm not going to bust my knee up just so I don't tap out in this role. You can have it, you know, like it, not even. Yeah.
Useful. You can use your Tai Chi push to push them off the platform, and then you get 3 points. Now, if you do that 3 times in one round, you automatically win. So that's where Tai Chi push can be really useful, is when you're training pushing. And the school I was with, especially with Damon Bramich, if you ever look at all of his things, they pressure test and load on you. So they do a lot of loading and putting weight on you, so you shift and change, and you're doing the interplay of hard and soft, which is yin and yang, right? That's what Tai Chi is. Tai Chi is yin and yang. They're doing that interplay of hard and soft when they're training. You can look on his YouTube and you can see him training his guys for competitions, and they're loading on each other. So that's where you get those jerks that are like, oh, they're doing sumo. But if your Tai Chi can't deal with hard pressure and loading, what good is your Tai Chi?
Their Tai Chi doesn't work because they're never gonna, you know, if you've invested 10, 15 years, that's a question I wanted to ask you, this, which relates to this, from the humiliation of you've wasted your time for these. How long had you been training in Tai Chi before you had your first fight?
It took me about 15 years. About 15 years. Mm-hmm.
Tai Chi, you know, I'd had street fights before that, but I found that, and this is what makes me laugh about people go, yeah, but Tai Chi's for the street, you know, like it's, my street fights were very easy. My actual fights that I had, yeah.
Done like form, short weapon, long weapon, Chinese martial art competitions with push hands. So it was kind of like the logical next step, because I was always at watching the Guoshu fights, like the full contact, being like, why am I not up there? Why am I sitting in the benches? I could be fighting out there, or going to smokers. I'm like, I can do that. That's something I want to try, at least, just to say, you know, I at least tried to use my Tai Chi in a full contact kind of way, even though like anyone who sees my fights are like, oh, that's not Tai Chi, da 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 da.
Will look like good martial arts, you know, like people. the thing I always hate is these people standing there and like pushing against each other, like, and then one will magically fly away, and it's like, but that's not true Tai Chi. Like, yes, I want to be able, if someone comes in and pushes me, I want to be able to root and push back, but that's still force against force. Even though you're uprooting, you use them, it's still force against force. What I want to be able to do, if someone's coming rushing in at me, is step out to the side and they go flying past. That's leading them into the void. That's using yin against yang at its most ultimate. You know, like, don't be there. That's the highest part of Tai Chi for me, is not to be there. Someone punches at me, yes, I want to be able to parry it, but I also don't want to be there, because if my parry misses, I'm still getting hit. If I move out the way and I parry, well, that punch is still going to miss me, regardless of how successful my parry is. And it's that kind of actual, like, competing, like, in full contact or pushing hands or any other amount of things. We have lots of footage of what we do for our martial arts. So if you want to see stuff like that, just click on one of our links and you'll find it. David, again, he's saying, like, discussing how Tai Chi is perceived versus, you know, like, you can't just show movements in the air, and that's the big thing. That's what I keep saying. These people that basically cosplayers that have invested too much in not finding out whether their stuff works or not. And it's very easy to sit back and say, well, I wouldn't have done that. I mean, that's why I initially fought in the first Sanchu tournament, because I used to go and watch these competitions. I go, that's not real Tai Chi. And I go, well, that's not. And I go, I could do better than that. And then in the end, like, I was like, well, if I'm going to say I can do better than that, then I should go and prove that I can do better than that. And the thing for me, the real big thing was, as you said about strength and conditioning, I wasn't getting that. Like, if I'd have been going to Dan's classes all the time, he was big on strength and conditioning. My Kung Fu teacher, not so much. And I was so gassed within the first 30 seconds of that Sanchu fight. I had never been so tired in my whole life. And the only thing that kept me going was my other London teacher who was in the audience. At one point I lay down, I was like, oh, I'm not getting up. Not for being hurt, just for being gassed. And Godfrey was like, get up! And I was more scared of him than I was any other person in that building. So I just leapt up off the floor and carried on with the fight. Thankfully, I won 2 out of 3 rounds, like the first 2 rounds. And back then, if you won 2 rounds in a row, you won the fight. You didn't have to go into the third. And I was so glad, because I don't think I could have carried on into the third round. And that's a huge lesson. And again, for people that don't compete, they go, well, I fight for the streets. Like, that's being prepared. You've got a fight camp you're coming up to, and you gas. You know, there's nothing, like you said earlier about the adrenaline dump, everything else. In an unexpected encounter, there is nothing that gasses you out quicker than having to suddenly deal with explosive, real violence that you're not prepared for. And if you can't compete and not gas out, you definitely cannot defend yourself in the street or in your home or out and about if you haven't got that gas tank to fall back on.
My hometown, and I was working in some factories, and I told you that there's no nonsense about martial arts down there. Like, wrestling was really big, like a lot of high school wrestling teams were really big down there. And I remember working in this factory, a t-shirt factory, and my boss, his name was Randy Crank. He's the guy who actually printed my TaiChiFighter.com shirts. When I first met him and I'm working with him, and he was a big, strong guy. And, you know, I was telling him about the Tai Chi and everything, and he didn't tell me this, but he was like on the wrestling team at Great Bridge, which was a really good team. And so he rushed me in like wrestling style, and I did like this brush knee kind of yielding thing and like sent him into a t-shirt box. And he was laughing his ass off because I hardly touched him. And then he's like, okay, I understand Tai Chi. He became a Tai Chi student after that. And then another time, my friend Daryl, my best friend growing up, he's Filipino. So he knew like a lot of Filipino martial arts. He did Chuck Norris karate growing up, and he did Taekwondo, and he was like constantly in fights in middle school and high school, and then like same thing with him. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in Richmond. I did Tai Chi, and he had been doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so he decided to like monkey attack me, and I found out I had him on the ground, and I found myself in the punch down position in the Tai Chi. So I'm on my feet on top of him, and I had him under control, and then he just like, okay, yeah, I see you have been doing some martial arts now. So you have to earn that respect when you get challenged by other people, and that only comes from pressure testing.
People that don't seem to get, but I wonder where, because like I started training in the 90s as well, and it was just Tai Chi was the practical one. Tai Chi was the one where had people out there proving that their fighting worked, and because I disappeared from the Tai Chi world for like well over a decade, I kind of assumed that carried on, but it really, in the UK anyway, that really hasn't happened. I don't know what it's like in the US.
There wasn't YouTube. You had like either a rotary phone or a dial-up phone. You had to remember phone numbers, and like for me, it was like, okay, Monday, let's go to yoga class. Tuesday, there's Tai Chi class. Wednesday, there's Zen. So you kept occupied by actually doing things, and nothing was online. And so I really think the technology has made us weaker, and especially post pandemic. Like, I don't want to get into the politics of the pandemic, but I think it's made everybody weaker. Unless you maintain going to the gym throughout the whole thing. But like back in the day, it wasn't about social media and wasting time there. It was like reading books and going out and hanging out with friends and practicing your martial arts. We used to go to, there's a couple different parks we went to. Like I said, I used to hang out with this one guy doing the Wing Chun, and so we would do Wing Chun. So I mean, there's always something to do, someplace to go and to practice something, whether yoga, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, whatever.
I did have balls. I was just doom scrolling on like Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and it's so easy to get sucked into it. And as you say, like back in the 90s, you did just read books. You did have to go out and socialize. Social media is definitely a reason for that, but I think there's more to it than that. I think maybe UFC, like the rise of MMA, has had an effect. I think it kind of sucked out a lot of the people that were interested in fighting, and that void has been filled with a lot of promises to people, but with no backup, as it were.
Tai Chi guy won. And I was like, really? A Tai Chi guy won? And it's actually Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but but it was the same kind of concept. He kind of used softness and grappling, and it's I would have thought Aikido or something, but no, it was actually Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That's when Brazilian Jiu Jitsu really came on the stage, and yeah, and so yeah, that was a rude awakening.
Sort of. I compete doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're still dining out on like Royce Gracie's name, and it's like, you do know that was over 30 years ago now. Like, it's moved on. Yeah, not like there's Jiu-Jitsu isn't what it used to be, and we'd go, like, you'd have MMA classes, you get a few Jiu-Jitsu people would, yeah, I'm good at Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to get MMA. They get punched around the face a few times and then disappear back to Jiu-Jitsu again.
It was stand up to get to the top position to ground and pound them. And then if shit hit the fan and you were on your back, then you go to guard. And
that don't seem to realize that actually, sorry, you're not fighting. You are just doing a sport. While people that they think that they're fighting, and don't get me wrong, in the average street fight confrontation that you're going to get into against somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing and hasn't pressure tested themselves, a good competitive jiu-jitsu guy is going to walk all over the average person. But if you come across somebody that's done a bit of MMA or Muay Thai or something else, and you get punched for that first time, you're definitely in for a bad day.
And now he's showing the Tai Chi way of doing jiu-jitsu to get out of this. No, go to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school for a few years and watch your ass get tied up in a pretzel 10 times in a rolling session. Humbling things you can do is like go to a good judo class or a good jiu-jitsu class, test your Tai Chi, but you're gonna find yourself in a whole lot of trouble most of the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, like, if you're rolling with black belts, everything is suddenly different, you know. And if you don't, and even I always say, like, if you're not interested in jiu-jitsu, you should at least do it. If you're serious about self-defense, you should at least do jiu-jitsu up to like a blue belt level, because that's going to give you enough so that if someone does put you down on the ground, you're going to be able to safely get back up to your feet to carry on the fight. And all these Tai Chi people that say, oh, I'd never get taken down, or the ground's the last place you want to be. The ground is the last place you want to be in a self-defense situation, but you are still going to find yourself there at some point if you're attacked by someone. You know, it's going to happen at some point.
When you're not training every day, it's like you're paddling up a river, right? When you're not training, you go backwards. So keep moving forwards, keep progressing, and train every day and challenge yourself. Get yourself out of the box. Get out of your comfort zone and spar with people. Push hands with lots of different people. Don't be scared. Everyone's usually really friendly. Some of the most friendly people are killers in the ring, but they're really the nicest people. So yeah, Jayo, just keep going. Yeah, kill your ego and learn. You can learn from anybody. Yeah. All right, thank you, everybody. You can just Google Dr. Matthew Stampe. Yeah, you can just do that. Matthew Stampe. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Have a good one. All the best.